Okay, we are live. This is the OSRA Daily Scrum for Wednesday, February 11th, 2015. Here we have Christian, Gabrielle, and myself. I guess, Gabrielle, since we were talking already, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I was telling that the test that the problem or the difficult part of the test is that we are using a customized model for admin users. So the for the test they are they're using the default model system that is user only. So I think that the problem comes in for that for programming in the customized model. But I will try to try new things or some things to make if I can make it work.
Okay. I'm just thinking, I was looking at your, at the view that you have, the header HTML ERB, and I see that you're using current admin user as a variable there. So do you think that in a test, when you write the view spec, you can basically set that variable and then render the template, and then the template will be able to access it?
But in the test, do you say in the test? I can set the current admin user variable.
Yeah, so basically in a test what you want to do is you want to, because we have a branch here in the view where if a user is signed in, then something happens. So to mock that in a test, can you, instead of relying on the system to log in a user and to set the current admin user variable, if you set it yourself in the spec, then and then render the template, then will that be sufficient to make the test think that there is a user signed in?
That's cool. I will try that. Yeah.
And we can also test this in the Cucumber, right?
Sure.
It's easy to test there.
Yeah, we can test it in the Cucumber. I would, for this particular, for testing this particular branch in the view, to check that if a user is signed in, then his or her email is displayed in the header. I would say that that's probably too low level of a test for a Cucumber feature.
Yes, it is. I also tried to figure this out, but looked briefly into it, but couldn't find something practical.
Okay.
I guess there is an option to create a new user in the database and just use the sign in method from the device, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be an option if we. I mean, ideally, as I said, if there is a way to mock the sign-in process. But yeah, if there isn't a way to do it, then yeah, the other alternative would be to actually go through the whole process and actually sign in with a real user instance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Check that
the header. Mocking is the way to do it, right?
Ideally, yeah. I mean, if it becomes too difficult, Gabrielle, then yeah, we'll have to abandon it. But okay. So Christian, let's go to you.
Yeah, I didn't work today on the OSRA. I just noticed I got some comments from you and Brian.
Yeah, I was in the end. I think that comment doesn't really need to be addressed. We just had basically Brian and I just had a discussion.
So you want to move these?
Well, yeah. My question was that there are those two sponsor partials, and the way that things are currently is that either both of them are displayed or neither is displayed. So in a situation, I guess if you only have, for example, active sponsors, you will still render both partials, both the partial for the active sponsors and the partial for inactive sponsors. And it's only if a user has no sponsors at all that neither one of the partials is rendered. So my question is, or my question was whether we should render each partial conditionally. So if there are active sponsors, then render the active partial, and if there are inactive sponsors, then render the inactive partial. But ultimately, I don't think it's a big issue. So it can stay. Sorry.
I was looking at something else, sorry.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Which one were you looking at?
This one here.
Well, yeah.
Let's get back to this, sorry.
Well, this basically, I don't think there's anything to be done there. It was just a question that I had out of curiosity, and I think it can stay as is. I just wondered if there had been a discussion about it before or not. But the other comment about setting the pagination default, I would like to think of a better place to put that, because the comment that I made on pull request number 310 is that this is now a active record model, but by setting this this variable within it, it now becomes part.
You want one variable for all the views?
No, not necessarily. I think they can be all different variables. I would just prefer to see them being set somewhere else, because I don't think that the active record model should be responsible for how it is rendered for an HTML view.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe then we should create a I don't know, configure file or something like that.
Maybe some kind of config file. Maybe we can think about. I don't know if using a presenter here would be too much of an overkill, but something like that. But basically, it seems to go beyond the responsibility of the active record model to also worry about how it's displayed on an HTML page. So. But I have to say I don't have an answer for this immediately. This is something for us to explore, and maybe we can find a solution.
What is this settings YAML here?
The settings YAML is something that we want to get rid of, actually.
Really?
Yeah, these are all the settings that deal with importing orphans, but stuff like that shouldn't be in the config folder anyway, because that's where the application config is stored. So it definitely
something good for the pagination.
So yeah, I mean, probably not in here, because this is, you know, the whole config folder is basically dedicated to setting up the environment for the entire application. It's not really so, but it would be maybe in a helper of some sort. So that's kind of the line along which I'm thinking.
I don't know.
Yeah, me neither. I admit that I don't know either. But I think it's a valid.
If you put it in the helpers, maybe it will be too hard to find. It should be somewhere in the root, maybe, and we can gather all the config variables from the application and put them into one file. What's important to configure the overall application?
Yeah, I mean, you still don't want to put everything into one single file. If you have some variables that have to do with, you know, HTML rendering, some variables that have to do with, I don't know, some kind of a process like orphan import export. We still want to have some kind of separation there. We don't want to have just a one big file that has a whole bunch of these things in it. But yeah, I'll keep thinking about this myself, maybe. Just something for us to wonder about. And we can probably go ahead and merge that PR before that gets resolved. And then once we come up with a different place to store them, we can just set.
Oh, do you want this test that I made with mocking the save?
Yeah.
You want to do it like?
Well, it seems that Robbie's approach was a bit less awkward, I guess. That he didn't have to do this kind of override the save method and reach in and set the ID. But I think he got away with it because he used a build stubbed factory object, which gets an ID. Maybe that's. Yeah, you need to, if you go to the spec for that. So yeah, if you look for, I guess you're looking at the valid update or valid create. I think that's what it is, right?
The valid, yeah, the create.
Yeah, here.
Let me find it. Create. I turn through.
So, like I said, I think this works for him because his new user is actually a build stubbed on line 67. You can see that he uses build stubbed to create that, and so that.
Yes, but I also use build stubbed. Didn't I?
What's your? Here, let's have a look. Where's your sponsor? It should be up somewhere. Let's sponsor Factory Girl build stub sponsor. Okay, so does that mean that you shouldn't have to do that at all?
No, let me see. Because this one is returning true, but this new user, how does the controller know which the ID of the new user? Because the controller is filtering out the ID because it has strong parameters. So it shouldn't know. Right?
Post create user. Okay. So you see what he does. Allow on line 68. He says allow user to receive new and return new user. So basically, yeah, I think that's what does it.
Yeah, and then it gets an ID from here.
Right. It's as Brian pointed out in his comment, it's a little bit. Well, it bends the truth a little because, of course, that.
Yeah, it's not the normal flow of the application.
Right, because yeah, that object should not have an ID yet at that point.
Yes. How about instead of using build stub for the sponsor, I'll use the normal create and let it touch the database.
Yeah, you know what
I don't have to do this.
Yeah, I would prefer that to what's happening here. Yeah.
Otherwise, it will get confusing. Then.
All right. Okay, so that's what you've been doing today. Is there anything else?
Well, I've been learning the SES courses last week, and this week is about the performance and deployment and caching, and I think all the complicated things that were left to the last week.
Yeah.
So maybe a little too intense maybe this week. But
Okay.
good stuff anyway.
All right.
And that's about it.
Okay, so I'll wrap up then by saying that, yeah, I didn't have a lot of time today myself. In fact, the only thing that I had time for was over lunch. I watched a couple of videos from Thoughtbot, this upcase that I subscribe to, and one thing I shared it on Slack. I don't know if people saw it. Their position is that callbacks are a code smell and should be avoided, basically. And then, just by coincidence, while I was working, I was listening to another podcast where somebody else repeated that exact same sentiment, that callbacks are, in fact, the guy who was talking at the time, I don't know if you know the name, Aaron Patterson, he is on a core team for Rails, and he basically said that he would love to be able to remove callbacks from Active Record completely, but probably won't be able to because they're so deeply embedded now in the Rails ecosystem, I guess. But their point is that callbacks, the only reason to use them, or the only good time to use them, is if there's some kind of persistence logic that needs to happen. So, for example, you need to, we have situations like that in the application where if you create a sponsorship, then before you save the sponsor, it recalculates how many active sponsorships it has and stores that in a database column. So basically runs a counter cache. But anything else, you run into a situation where, first of all, a model tries to do more than it should. And the second reason is that you can have unintended consequences. If you have a callback, for example, if you have a callback that fires every time a record is saved, then all you might want to do is just change one little attribute on the record, but because the callback is there, it fires off some kind of an action that you didn't anticipate. And so something very simple can actually have consequences that you don't understand until it's too late. And that really made me think about the sponsorship model that we have, because right now it has two callbacks. One is after save and another one after destroy. That makes the sponsor and the orphan models update themselves. And basically, I already didn't like this very much because that gives sponsorship the responsibility for updating sponsor and orphan, which isn't its responsibility. But also, there's the fact, like I said, every time you touch a sponsorship record, it also fires off those callbacks, whether that was your intention or not. And so in that light, perhaps those service objects that I've been experimenting with are actually a preferred solution for that, because they take that responsibility completely away from sponsorship and extract it into a completely separate object.
Yeah, well, in the course also they said that this observer design pattern is not very easy to debug.
Yeah, because you no longer have a linear flow that you can
exactly,
clearly follow.
And this also reminds me when you're working on the front end and you're filling up the page with a lot of jQuery events, and then you lose track of everything, because the events, they are just like observers.
Yeah.
So same thing.
Yeah. So, like I said, I guess my intention has been to present whatever work I did on those service objects, to actually share it with the team and to have a discussion about it. I am hoping that there will be a time in the near future when we have more people around to have that discussion with. So I don't know, maybe next week or maybe on the weekend after a client meeting when more people are available. I don't know.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Yeah, I was also thinking about what to do with phase one, because if it's, for the past week it's been the three of us guys, and if that's how it is going forward, then we need to, at the very least, I think we need to tell the client that things have changed very much and that the speed at which we'll be able to deliver new features is going to slow down a lot.
Well, didn't this happen before? Like before me and Andre joined?
Well, we didn't have quite. I mean, what's happening right now almost seems like a crisis. There was a period at the beginning of the project when Modism was working completely by himself. And then when Craig and I joined in September of last year, since then our pace has been pretty good, and it's only been building up. When Brian and you and Andre joined, and Robbie and Gabrielle now.
Great. We had meetings of 2 hours and maybe even more.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked. That's why I put that message on Slack just before the scrum. Is that I'd like to know what it is that people that's keeping people away.
Well, as far as I know, Brian is working full time now, so he can't join from the work.
Right.
About Andre, I don't know, but I guess he's busy because he joined the other team that was doing stuff in Angular and
Yeah.
Node.js, so he probably is busy too.
Right.
Craig, I don't know. I'm sure he will be back soon.
Yeah, I hope so. And then, well, yeah, Robbie, he's been away. He said that he will be away. But yeah, I'd like to get a better understanding of at least, who's available for the next sprint before we can plan something with any degree of certainty.
Yeah,
So,
well, I'm available this week, but can't do too much work because I want to finish this course first.
yeah,
And
sure, no, I understand
I'm
that.
also working on my portfolio to recreate it, and but after next week I'll be pretty free and will continue. Can
Okay.
work on phase one or on Rails on whatever is needed.
All right. So, I guess at this point today's Wednesday, and we're still at basically down to three people right now. I am thinking that we postpone our sprint planning until Monday, and hopefully by that point we will have at least Craig back.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's only Craig that will be back.
Yeah, unfortunately that's probably the case. Okay.
Or maybe new people. I talked today with somebody who wants to join, and I'm trying this weekend to join some homeworks with other people, so maybe I can see how they are doing and maybe invite them to
Yeah,
join.
spread the good word.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Christopher, the guy who who designed that layout wireframe for us, he asked me a while ago because he used to work on Website One as a developer. He used to do some Rails for them, but that project doesn't seem to be going anywhere, basically. So he was asking if there was room on the team, on the OSRA team, for a developer. And I told him, of course.
Yeah, sure.
But haven't seen him around either. So I don't know what his plan is.
If you look on website one, there are pull requests here that are since December 13th.
Yeah.
Just January 12, December 10, December 10, December 8. So not much progress there either.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, if I look at other Slack channels, there just seems to be nothing going on.
I don't know what's happening, but well, Sam said that many people are joining Agile Adventures and they are learning a lot very fast, and of course they are moving on and getting jobs and don't have time to spend.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that that's
Well, it
quite.
seems like it's happening because I see more and more people that are working full time, and that's the only reason they then don't have time for Agile
Yeah.
Adventures.
All right. Well, let's hope that we can still keep OSRA going, though.
Oh, definitely we can.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, in that case, let's just have a regular Scrum tomorrow and Friday. We can discuss on Friday night maybe if we need to have a client meeting or not, because we don't have anything to tell them.
So if we don't have anything new,
Yeah.
Okay.
So unless they have something to tell us, there's probably no need for it. But then next week, basically no matter what, on Monday, let's have a sprint planning. We'll talk about phase 1 and start working on that.
yep, good plan.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then all right. And Gerrit,
No. For me, nothing. And I should be able, or I will be able to join, to join the program, the development of the project. Till I don't know, till I tell that I cannot do it. But my plan is to be here. Help whatever I can do. Yeah.
all right, excellent, Gabriel. Okay, guys. So let's. I guess we still have all of us have a little bit to do with the open pull requests that we're working on. So let's maybe try to wrap up as many of those as we can by the end of the week, and then we can start next week on phase 1.
Okay.
All right. Take care, guys.
Take care. Good night. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.